Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this open forum number 28, and welcome to this open forum organized by the Dutch Government Standardization Forum. This session focuses on 3 topics and one overarching theme. The theme is procurement, and primarily by governments, but there are lessons to be learned from the private sector and other organizations as well. The question this session will ask and answer is: can government procurement contribute to a safer and more secure and sustainable environment? My name is Wouter Natris, and I'm your moderator for today. And Dorijn Bogaert, who is sitting there, is our online moderator. And online also is Koen Wesselman, who is our rapporteur. Together we will lead you through the individual topics. The first one is Internet.nl, which is a tool that tells you how secure your ICT environment is within seconds. Two, Internet.nl is an international community launched in 2020, and you're invited.
There is no sound at the moment, so...
I hear you, and I hear myself as well. Continue. There was a sound issue. Sorry for that. 3. ICT and sustainability is becoming an ever more serious topic, and it is discussed in the final part of the session. In the panel discussion, we will learn how the Dutch government uses procurement and how it negotiated with big tech to deploy Also, you will hear from other organizations that work with the Internet.nl tool or so in the future. I think the mic electricity wasn't really working anymore, so I got a new microphone. So the big tech to deploy important internet standards. Also, you will hear from other organizations that work with the Internet.nl tool or strive to do so and learn from their experiences. There will be ample time to ask questions after the 2 panels, but first a short survey. Please show your hands. Who in the room is familiar with Internet.nl? I see a few hands. Who has used Internet.nl? I have. And are you interested to deploy it in your country? Yes, but you have. Okay, thank you very much. But without further ado, let me introduce the first speaker. Wouter Kobus from the Standardization Advisor at the Netherlands Standardization Forum is going to take you through the Internet.nl tool and how it works. So Wouter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Wout. Yes, so we will talk about measuring adoption of standards to improve security, and for that we use the Internet.nl tool. And on the next slide, we first have a motto. Why are we using internet standards? Well, to keep our internet open, free, and secure. However, those standards do not implement themselves. You have to implement them actively. And to support this adoption of standards, we developed the Internet.nl tool, which can be used to measure your adoption of these important standards. And for demonstration purposes, we measured the IGF donors and partners for this event using our dashboard. And the dashboard is a measuring tool which you can automatically measure multiple domain names on the adoption of email and website standards. And as you can see here, this is just a snippet of our results from last week. The adoption of standards for IGF donors is not optimal yet. However, some scores are over 50%, which is actually pretty good considering international standard adoption. This dashboard can be used for scheduled scanning and also for trend monitoring over time, and is regularly updated using the latest standards and measurements. And on the next slide, you can see a more detailed scanned result when you use our Internet.nl website to scan individual domain names. Quite ironically, the IGF website of this year did not perform too well. And the nice thing is that we do not only present a score to each domain name, but we also explain why this score is given and give guidance to how to improve your score. For instance, in this case, to enable some settings to protect your HTTPS connection better. On the next slide, you can see who is behind internet.nl, which is a private-public collaboration of organizations in the Netherlands and outside. And we also are striving to more international use of internet.nl. And on the next slide, you can see some of our international users. We are used at the moment in Brazil, in Portugal, in Denmark, and well, hopefully after this session, you get inspired to use internet.nl in your country as well. And to use internet.nl is actually quite easy, because on this next slide, I explain to you that internet.nl is an open source software program. It's available on GitHub if you really want to reuse it yourself. However, if you're not in the capacity to host your own internet.nl instance, you can also use our dashboard or API functionality. For that, I ask you to send us an email at question@internet.nl, in which we will give you access to our tooling. And as already introduced by Wout, we are also launching a new international initiative where you can actually participate in using internet.nl internationally. So if you're interested in joining that user community, please send an email to international@internet.nl. And then thank you for your attention.
Walter, and actually, if you mail to that email address, internet.nl, or international@internet.nl, then it's me that will respond to you, because I am recently appointed as its coordinator. That if you want to test it yourself, just now you can, because you can just type in internet.nl and, for example, type in the URL of your bank or your organization, and you will immediately see within about 30 seconds what the security of your organization is. That is what the tool tells you and the sort of measures you can actually take. Thank you again, Wouter, for the presentation. We're going into the panel discussion, which we have 4 participants in. And the first participant is Annemieke Toersen of the platform Internet Standards and Standardization Forum. And she was a senior policy advisor at the Netherlands Standardization Forum. So Annemieke, please.
Thank you very much, Wout, for your brief introduction. And thank you, Wouter, for showing us the advantages of internet.nl. And thank you for joining our session. Lately also more people came into the room. Thank you very much. Indeed, my name is Annemieke Toersen from Netherlands Standardization Forum. And this is a think tank and aims for more interoperability of the Dutch government. And open standards are key to this goal. Think about interoperability for trustworthy data exchange, or security, which influence, of course, the trust positively. Accessibility, as government is obliged and to inform the society as a whole, and vendor neutrality. No dependency on vendors is very important in this case. And the forum is actively promotes and advises the Dutch government about the usage of standards. And you have to consider that it's about 25 people from various backgrounds. So you think about government, business, and science. When it comes to internet standards, the Dutch government has a threefold strategies shown in the next sheet. And I briefly go through it. It's another sheet. It's backwards. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much. First, we mandate specific open standards. We can do so by including standards on the comply or explain list. And this is done after carefully research, in which we also consult technical experts. And standards on this list should be required when governments are investing in new IT systems or services. And as we survey under some bigger ICT organization within the Dutch government, we have seen quite some progress using open standards. However, it also became clear that some organizations have not yet moved on. In addition to comply or explain, the standardization forum can also make agreements with ultimate implementation dates. And we have already done so far for several modern internet standards like HTTPS and DNSSEC, and as well as ARPKI. Finally, we mandate by law specific open standards, for instance, with the open standards HTTPS and HSTS. Second, we go for monitoring to promote the adoption of standards, reviewing tenders and procurement documents. And for modern internet standards, we happily use internet.nl, as just mentioned, to frequently measure over about 2,500 government domains. So that's pretty much. Finally, number 3, we investing in community building. We try to bridge the gap between technical experts and governmental officials. Therefore, we are really happy with the internet standard platforms and are actively participating. This cooperation enables us to be more effective, helpful to governments with their technical questions and also with their questions regarding how to request modern internet standards for their vendors. If you watch for community building and international collaboration for digital standards, we engage several efforts, for instance, the Platform Internet Standard and the Secure Mail Coalition. And our international initiatives include Monsieur, collaboration with European countries. Wouter mentioned already countries like Denmark and Czech and Portugal. But internet.nl as well, code reused, and partners like Australia, and you further on here, Flavio from Brazil and Denmark to greater critical mass. What we do, we actively reach out to vendors and hosting providers like Cisco, Microsoft, OpenExchange, Google, and Akamai. And this approach inspired Denmark to adopt similar practices, resulting in successes such as Microsoft's announcement of full support for the Dane email security standard on Exchange Online last October. We're pretty proud for that. This achievement is partly due to ongoing correspondence and discussions between the Dutch government and Microsoft since 2019. And by lobbying other countries, we create a critical mass that enables more effective negotiations with suppliers. And our experience with Microsoft demonstrates the importance of formalizing agreements through concrete correspondence, which is very important, of course. This strategy can be applied to other areas, but such as sustainability. Later on, we hear about them. And suppliers are more inclined to modify their services when multiple governments or countries support an issue. The key is to build a critical mass. And the next sheet will show you that the most important is, sorry, this was the next sheet. You can show the next sheet, please. Build a critical mass is very important to find other partners. And formalize agreements through concrete correspondence is a very key thing in having this succession. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annemieke. And as you can see, is that what everybody thinks that big tech, everything is in concrete. It is not until you start discussing with them and perhaps they change their ways and make us all more secure, because that apparently is what is going to happen. Now we're going to move outside of the Netherlands and listen to what other countries have been doing so far with internet.nl, but giving it, of course, their own name. The first to speak is Gilberto Zorello, and he will talk about top.br from Brazil, where he's the project coordinator at Nick.br, and in the room is his colleague Flavio Kenji Yanai, who is a system developer. And if you have any questions about Brazil, you can ask Flavio after the session. But first, Gilberto, the floor is yours.
about 20% only. DNSSEC signed 20%, and HTTPS about 6%. Working with we have a work with government here in Brazil. They tested many websites of government, and they are working internally with the internal organs of the government to improve the implementation of the best practice here in Brazil. We need to test about 21,000 tests, unique domains tested. The Hall of Fame is about 80. IPv6 only 30%. DNS signed 11%. The mark, the KSPF, 16%. And StarTLS just 1%. The connection test is about 300,000 tests, more tests in this case. The unique IS tested about 7,000. It's an important number because we have here in Brazil 9,000 ASs. Then we can check that 7,000 was tested up to now. Okay, the DNS recursive validating DNSSEC is about 210,000, 7.1%, and user for IPv6 is 7%. It's important to say that the adoption of IPv6 in Brazil is increasing in the last year. In Brazil, the tool was, as I said, deployed using middle up-down approach. I think I don't know if you. The other important thing is we just implemented the version of 1.7. Okay, and in the next year we will implement the 1.8 version of internet.nl. I don't know if Flavio can complete some information.
Flavio is okay, he says. Thank you, Gilberto, for this showing us how things have changed. Were you finished or?
Yes, I finished.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to check to be certain. Thank you very much, and it's encouraging to see that numbers are going up because of the work that you're doing, and I want to congratulate on that. The next who's going to speak is going to come in from Singapore, and that is Stephen Tan. He works as an assistant director at the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, and is responsible internet security and mobile security. Stephen, you're working with the internet.nl tool or something very similar to it for some years. Can you tell us the experience that you have in Singapore?
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen. Right. So similar to internet.nl, Singapore has developed our own internet hygiene portal, which is meant to improve the country's cybersecurity landscape. Right. The IHP encourages service providers to adopt key internet security best practices through a very transparent rating system. So on top of the tool itself, we have come up with a rating system that to actually understand whether they sorry, can I just double check because I'm seeing that I'm being muted here.
We can hear you, Stephen, but you dropped away for a few seconds, but we can hear you
Sure.
again.
Okay, sure. Right. So basically, when we came out with the transparent rating system known as our internet hygiene rating, the approach has actually helped to shift industry behavior and perspective by promoting proactive security enhancements, right? So since its launch in 2022, IHP has conducted more than 200,000 scans with users from across 40 countries, right? And importantly, notably, for more than 45% of domains have also shown improvements from their first initial scan to their most recent evaluation, right? that has actually helped to provide us with data points that IHB has reflected meaningful progress in cybersecurity readiness itself as well. So now, what we have done is that similar to what Internet.nl has done, we have also included an API which will be available early next year, right? That will enable seamless integration for businesses that's looking to automate their security assessments. Several of the industry players and ICT providers have also signed up with us, showing keen interest and commitment to enhance their cybersecurity postures, right? So till date, IHB has also helped to shift the cybersecurity landscape in Singapore. We have seen ICT service providers that's within our APAC regions like Orion and Exabytes. Basically, these companies, right, they have stepped up and joined the Internet Hygiene Rating Initiative. What it means is that they have configured their websites and email services to meet by default security, strong internet security best practices, which also means that any of the clients out there or businesses that actually goes to these providers, right, would by default have a high rating of internet security best practices, right? So what has been even more encouraging is that even smaller ICT firms in Singapore has come on board. They are now being featured in our internet hygiene rating under this section known as the ICT website and email management providers category. I'll provide the link later on. So it shows that more of these businesses are starting to recognize the importance of following recognized internet security best practices. By far, the responses from vendors has been great. I think similar to what Internet.nl team has shared earlier on, right? Even tech giants like Microsoft, Amazon, and Akamai has also shown willingness to collaborate with us, recognizing the tools' potential to actually drive collective cybersecurity improvements, right? So besides this itself, I think Bart and I, we have been sharing notes between our our engagement with Microsoft, so that we could actually help to nudge the different tech giants, right, into doing action, right, to really make the internet a safer place. So today, the involvement between us and the tech giants have also significantly signaled an industry shift towards greater cooperation and shared responsibility in maintaining a secure internet environment. So by adopting the IHB's recommended best practices, they have also strengthened trust in their platforms while contributing to a safer digital ecosystem. Such collaboration proves that we could actually set security norms through voluntary industry engagement where transparency and fair recognition are in place. So moving forward, besides the Internet Hygiene Portal, we are seeing similar tools like like Internet.nl and of course NIC.br, right, as a strong starting point for establishing broader security norms. And while of course we understand that formal regulations may come later, the primary focus of such tools itself is to really encourage voluntary adoption through industry recognition, public visibility, and of course healthy competition. So I think kudos to the various teams here that have actually create such wonderful tools for your countries and of course to your region and in fact internationally. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. I think what the three presentations show is that on the one hand, with this tool, organizations can test themselves. But also what you hear Annemieke and Stephen say, that they test organizations and let them know what their current status is. And we heard from both that organizations that are tested and not tested so well have the inclination to move upwards and to better themselves and enter this Hall of Fame. But also that the big corporations are more or less exposed as being less secure. And that also means that some pressure on them starts existing to better themselves. And I think that that is one of the major factors that this tool can be so successful. We've heard from three organizations that have deployed. We will now hear from an organization that is looking into deployment. So I'm inviting the next speaker, Daishi Kondo. He's an associate professor at Osaka Metropolitan University. And one of his research interests is internet security, including email security. So Daishi, can you tell us what you're doing in Japan to make Internet.nl happen and what the challenges are that you're running into? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Daishi Kondo from Osaka Metropolitan University. And actually, I have to say that to the best of my knowledge, the Japanese government doesn't provide tools similar to the Internet.nl. And so I want to ask I want to answer two questions. The first question should be like, what makes the Internet.nl principle interesting for Japan? So for me, so this is just like an imagination because we don't have a similar tool. So the important point is like security visualization. So the Internet.nl has a like scoring system, and most people don't know the detail of the security measures, such as SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Although it's not necessary for people to know the details. However, the people can understand the security level of the systems through the scoring system. So this principle allows the people to easily prepare the specification sheet for introducing the systems. For example, so we want to achieve at least like 80% of the security level or like this. So also we have Internet.nl have a Hall of Fames and the Internet.nl compliant badge. So these features can create a peer pressure among the competitors within the same industry. So this should also like very interesting for me. The second question is, what do you expect to achieve in Japan by using the Internet.nl? So my answer is that the Internet.nl using Internet.nl can encourage the people to take better care of the systems. So currently, in Japan, so we don't have a like standard. So the one potential use case is to create the specification sheet for introducing system using a Japanese version of Internet.nl, so which can also be used to check the security measures implemented by the system provider. So I hope so at some point so we can implement a Japanese Internet.nl in Japan. Thank you very much.
And I wish you good luck with the implementation of Internet.nl in Japan. I understand that there's an online question. No? Then we go to the room to see if there are any questions on your side. So who would like to ask a question? Yes, please, sir. Do you have a microphone for the question in the room? Do you have a microphone? And please introduce yourself and your affiliation first, please, sir.
Firstly, my name is Peter Zanga Jackson Jr. I'm from Liberia, from the regulatory body. My question is, our country is far behind in terms of internet development. And now we are talking about I'm hearing NL. For my country will be internet.lr. We as regulator for a developing country like mine, what can we do? What is required of the regulators to ensure that we too have internet.lr, which is .Liberia? What can we do?
Well, I'm going to give the question to Wouter because he is working in that field. So he's going to answer the question. Thank you. And a very good question indeed.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. Like I mentioned, it is possible to reuse the code of Internet.nl. It's an open source project. And well, as a regulator, I think it might be an interesting tool to also to reuse because you can, of course, measure standard adoption. Yeah, well, the question how to launch it's basically, if you look from a technical perspective, it's simply following the installation instructions or to make use of our own tool through the dashboard or API features. Of course, if you want to use this for regulatory purposes, you will have to do some own work in making it land in your country, making operators, hosting providers, ISPs to actually use this tool to measure and improve their own standard adoption. But I would say the starting point for adoption is making it possible to measure your adoption, and therefore this source code could contribute to that. I hope that answers your question.
And I think it's available for free. So it's not like it's a business model. It's there for you to use if you want to start using it. Microphone?
Yeah, but yeah, my fear is, will we not be breaching, because I'll be using internet.nl, will I not be creating problem by interfering into the setup of Netherlands? I won't be interfering. Will that not create a problem for Liberia if we should start using internet.nl in Liberia? How can we handle this?
I would say that if you decide to start using it, then you deploy it in your own country. And from that moment, you name it, like Brazil, for example, they call it top. And in Singapore, they name it something else. So you give it your own name. It's no longer internet.nl. It's the name that you choose.
Okay.
And from that moment on, it's yours. So it's available for free. And the instructions, you just exchange cards with Wouter, and
Yeah, I will do
then
that.
it will be okay.
Yeah.
And then you can join the community that we will be setting up very soon. The first invitation will go out probably in January, early February.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
please join if you would like to.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there another question in the room? There's time for one more. And is there a question? Yes? And something online, Doreen? No? Then the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself first and your field. No? Or not? Oh, okay. Yes. The lady here. Okay, thank you.
So
Please-
first off, thank you for this initiative.
And please introduce yourself first.
Thank you so much. Shauna Hoffman with Guardrail Technologies. And one of the questions that I have, I actually just looked up my website and realized we have some work to do ourselves. I come from the United States. So what advancements have you been making with the US, or is this something that we need to start in our country?
I'm not quite aware actually if we have any initiative in the US right now, but I think as Wout is saying, this is it's partly the reason why we are having this session right now, is to make this tool more known globally. And I think perhaps we can talk after this session how we could reach the US as well, because I think it's in the end in the best interest of the internet and everyone here at the IGF to have this tool widely used and widely known. Not necessarily under the name internet.nl, but rather as tool in your country that is known and used by as many providers as possible. So let's talk after this session about this. Thank you.
You have a question, sir? Then please introduce yourself first and your affiliation.
Sure, yeah, it's my pleasure. My name is Munzal Al-Mutayri. Can you hear me? Okay, Engineer Munzal Al-Mutayri. I'm CEO of Nataj Al-Fikr. My question is regarding being proactive in terms of building the capacity of countries, especially with limited resources, technical limited resources. Usually we talk, but is there like any proactive initiative where there is measuring of their, infrastructure and trying to develop the infrastructure so it's standardized as much as possible with the other countries?
I'm not sure if I get your question fully.
Okay, for example, the gentleman from Liberia is asking, and that's reactive to what's happening. How about being proactive by, that's maybe by UN or international organization in the field. So to make sure that no country is left behind. So that's my question.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Well, the power of the tool is that it is not bound to a country to test domain names. So you can actually test, like I presented, you can test the IGF website, you can test websites from all over the world already. So the challenge is not in the technology, the challenge is in making it be adopted in those countries where the reach might be more difficult. And well, I consider this session one of our proactive measures to make this adoption more known. But if you have any ideas on that, then perhaps we can discuss it also after this session, how to make sure no one is left behind, as was introduced this morning as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Walter. And I think what I can add, if you would like to be proactive on this, you can use internet.nl to test websites in your country, and it will work. Except if you really want to measure your country and make it better known, it would be better then as a next step to deploy the system yourself. But to show your countrymen, you can just use internet.nl and, for example, test the bank or the government, whatever, in your own country, and you will get the results also. So that's perhaps a more proactive way to start. And thank you for your question.
Maybe can I add on to that as well? Sorry, Walt.
Sorry, who, where?
Yeah, Stephen
Online.
here. Yeah.
Oh,
right.
yes.
Maybe
Okay,
maybe
yes.
I can answer to that question as well. I think firstly, right, like what the Netherlands standardization forum is actually doing, similar to what in Singapore CSA, what we are trying to preach here is that when we identify the various best practices here, or these various modern standards itself, right, what we are trying to do is that we are coming up with a list to set a series of standards that all countries, and hopefully at the international level, can deploy it. So while we do believe that no country should be left behind when it comes down to secure internet adoption, by creating all these best practices available, like on internet.nl, like on NIC-BR, or in the Internet Hygiene Portal on the CSA government's website, right? What we are trying to do is that every country should embrace this. And that, this is where we have gone through the pain and various efforts that we have tried many standards out there. And then we have also tried things that by then is already dated, right? And that new technologies are coming along the way, and that we have curated this list for everybody to use it. So for countries who are now starting to embrace internet and to start to take on these various standards, right? The by de facto great standards that many have already tested and tried and have also learned our lessons, right? The more or less the correct answers are now available, and that for you who are trying to really trying to get your internet up now, these standards are perhaps I wouldn't say it's the best, but if it will it'll be to second or one another, right? That you may want to actually look at these standards and then adopt it across your country, and then have your ICT providers also develop and actually adopt such best practices. They would by default now be great and useful, especially with that many countries have actually already tried and tested already. So this is what we are trying to do here.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. And apologies that I didn't understand where the voice came from, because we can't see anybody online here. So thank you for that comment, because it's very significant and I think very explanatory. I see the gentleman asking the question saying thank you and nodding. As we have only an hour, we're going to move into the second section of our open forum, and that is on sustainability. And many of them in the room will have knowledge and most likely opinions on sustainability and the role that different stakeholders have to play to reach a more sustainable future for all living creatures. But how to go about this? Well, the Dutch government is working on a novel approach and use procurement processes. But what is the plan? What is the current state of the plan? What actions can we look forward to? These are more questions will be answered by Hanna Bouten, who's program coordinator for the Dutch Coalition for Sustainable Digitalization. And then next, Rachel Kuilenburg, who is coordinator sustainability for Logius, which is a part of the Ministry of the Interior. And Rachel is committed to getting sustainable IT a step further. But first we hear Hanna about the project and then Rachel more about the policy side of it. So Hanna, please, first.
Thank you so much, Wout, and thank you all live in Riyadh and here online for attending this session. I'd like to take you along and make the bridge from security to sustainability. And in the Netherlands, we do that with the Dutch Coalition for Sustainable Digitalization. So if I could have the next slide, please. So to start with, the internet obviously is part of a digital system, and that digital systems shouldn't only be secure, but also sustainable. If we zoom out, in Europe, we call this the twin transition. So we're in a digitalization transition, but the other side of the digitalization transition is the sustainability transition. We see a growth of connections, a growth in quality, and also technology becoming more efficient. But nevertheless, we as human beings have the tendency to use efficiency that comes free. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So that means that we have to see digitalization in terms of sustainability as well. And we can look at sustainability of the digital system in 3 scopes. And the first scope has to do with your own company. Think of your company facilities, but also the vehicles of your company. We call this scope 1. And also scope 2, where purchasing comes in perspective. So the emissions you make by purchasing energy, for example. And scope 3 has to do with the indirect responsibility you have when you purchase something throughout the supply chain and also the distribution to your end consumer. And with regards to IT, you can think about e-waste and also the scarcity of minerals and metals. So next slide, please. So in the Netherlands, we try to give this so-called twin transition, we try to drive it forward in the public-private cooperation, since stakeholder groups all have to play a role in this transition. And here you see a number of the logos of the parties we cooperate with. The Coalition for Sustainable Digitalization is possible with help of all these parties, and especially together with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, together with the Coalition and the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands. We created the Action Plan for Sustainable Digitalization, which has analyzed and identified several action points to be able to move this transition forward. If we can go to the next slide, please. And we do that in 4 program lines, and that is visualized in this House of Sustainable Digitalization. Very important slide is the first program line is the first program line, technological innovation. This has to do with sustaining the digital system. And within the coalition, we focus on sustaining artificial intelligence, since the big adoption of sustainable intelligence. But also we're looking at how to make internet more sustainable. Then on the right, you see sustainable by IT. And as you already heard in my introduction, digitalization needs energy, and therefore we're looking into the relation between the energy system and the digital system. But also making the IT of organizations more sustainable is a very important program line. In the European Union, we currently have a directive. It's called the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive, which makes companies to report about the 3 scopes I just mentioned. And we have several working groups working towards solutions for organizations to start their journey to making their IT more sustainable. And a very important working group in this program line is the IT procurement working group, of which Rachel is our chair. And this is a very natural moment to give the word to Rachel so she can explain a bit more how we do that with regards to procurement. Thank you so much for your attention.
And thank you, Hannah. And Rachel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk a little bit about sustainable procurement of IT. My name is Rachel and I work for Logius, and that's the digital government service of the Netherlands, of the Ministry of the Interior, and we maintain government-wide ICT solutions and common standards to simplify the communication between the government and our society. Well, we, as Logius, we procure a lot of IT, and that's why I'm also chair of the working group IT procurement within the coalition. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, because, you know, we can talk about a lot, but we should do this. So next slide. Here you see a policy frame, and in my former job, when I was also in sustainable of tangible world of plastics and food waste, we developed this framework to commit the R strategies to a policy or within an organization. So we focus on refuse. That should be the strategy in the tactics is reduce and reuse. So it was really nice to hear that our former speakers really try to reuse the standard of the internet.com. But we strive really to make a better sustainable footprint on IT. And that involves software, but also storage, cloud data and hardware, because 80% of the footprint of IT is in the production of hardware. So to make sure that hardware should be bought as less as possible, this framework could help. But then the question is how to procure this. And in the next slide, we show you our focus points. And firstly, it's really, we focus on to minimize our energy needs. So energy efficiency is really very needed within the procurement of IT. Also emission free, so that's focus on hardware, also in the data centers, to become CO2 neutral in 2030 or 50, whatever your policy is. And in the end, we really try to procure circular and climate proof. But then the question is, how are you going to do this? So at this moment, and that's on the next slide, we are developing a framework. And here you can see, and it's a start. So please, if you, you want to help us, send me an email. How to, really focus on several focus points in relation to hardware, software, and cloud. So in hardware, what you can see if we procure, you can really aim for energy requirements. Also, there are some ISO standards or an energy audit you can ask for. What is a very helping legislation at this moment is the CSRD within Europe. So every big company from whom we procure, they have to report their sustainability credentials. So that also will help you with CO2 to become CO2 neutral. Also for cloud, because we within Logius, but the Dutch government, we have our own data centers, but we also procure a lot of data centers. For that, we also have standards to make sure that our suppliers are trying to aim for, becoming as sustainable as possible. Within the coalition at this moment, we try to develop, a better framework. So coming year, we will focus on hardware, software, and cloud. But also a very important part of the procurement is the contract management. So the next step, what we will take coming year, is to do more research on how to, not only how to procure, but also how to contain within the contract management that all the IT procurement is going to be secure. So if you, the last slide, if you want to help us or if you need any information, we are more than willing to share. Just send me an email. It's my email address is here within the sheet. And we make nice steps in procuring sustainable IT, and hopefully with your help, we can make better steps. So thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Rachel. As everything is in Dutch on this slide, perhaps you could translate what people are reading here for them.
Oh yeah, it's about our aims of Logius. What I said, we are the digital government service, and it's about, toegang. How do I translate this in English? It's early morning here in Holland.
Accessibility, I would say.
Accessibility. It's about interaction. It's about data exchange, the infrastructure, and it's about standards within IT. So these are our aims within the company, and I should have used an English one. So my apologies for this Dutch.
Sorry for putting you on the spot, Rachel. There's one question online, but one short comment. I think what was promised is a third topic, and that is how things interact between the two topics, but that is procurement. Because if you measure your internet standards, that's the moment you know what you can procure on to make yourself more secure. And the same goes for the sustainability. When you know what it's about, then you can start procuring measures that are actually supporting sustainability. There's a question online. I'm pointed to my cell phone. And it's in the chat. It's someone called Bart, and he's asking, what does the international Inter.nl community focus on, and is more the tool or is it usage? And Walter, would you like to answer that? Or I can do that myself. I think what the community is trying to do is bring together the organizations that are currently working with the Internet.nl or a tool like it, and the organizations that are interested to do so in the future. And what we would do is to come together twice a year and online, not physically, but online, and discuss where we actually are at this point in time and what the challenges are that we run into, to learn from each other, but also, for example, to coordinate on the next step. So that if we all would move together to a next evaluation of evolution of the project, then we could do so together, develop together, and in that way learn together. So that is what we're going to do in the first year. And after the first year, we'll evaluate and see if we continue in the same way, or that we have to change it, or perhaps that there's no interest. That's the other option, of course. But we'll be working on that in the next year and have 2 sessions, probably one in the spring and one in the fall, on the Northern Hemisphere at least. And from there, see how we develop. I saw there was a question in the room, or... No, there isn't. Then I will move to Koen Wesselman, who's our rapporteur. And Koen, can you tell us what we went through and what the lessons are that we learned here today? Koen, the floor is yours.
Yes, I can. Thank you all for being here. We started this session off with a clear explanation by Wouter of what Internet.nl is and what it's doing and what it's standing for. An open, free and accessible internet for everyone. We moved into the panel discussion where Annemiek from the Dutch Standards Forum made a clear appeal to build a critical mass of countries and organizations to make lasting changes to internet standards and security. We have seen very promising presentations from the Brazilian Organization for Internet Standards and the Cybersecurity Agency from Singapore. Thanks for that a lot. And we hope to see that Japan is moving, Daiichi is moving forward to start an Internet.nl version for Japan and monitor their internet activities. We have seen clear questions from the present person from Liberia, which have been answered, and Hannah and Rachel gave a clear insight into what the Netherlands is doing in combining digitalization and sustainability in a private-public cooperation with the government and companies, and how procurement plays an important role in improving the situation for the Netherlands. And I hope that for everyone, this concludes the session.
Thank you very much, Koen. And this is what we will be putting online as a report for this session. I think that we've learned a lot in this session. And I'm not going to repeat what Koen said, because that is the summary already. But I think that what is important to know, that if you want to procure products, you have to know what you're buying. And you can only know what you're buying when you test it beforehand. And I think that is a lesson that we're starting to learn, where sustainability is concerned, but also where the security of the internet is concerned. And I've got a minute, so I will make some advertisement about the dynamic coalition that I'm chairing also, and I'm a coordinator of, which is called Internet Standard Security and Safety Coalition, which functions within the IGF. And internet standards, as I say, is the main part that we're working on. And to make sure that procurement start happening, especially within governments, that they procure secure by design, but also to watch education and skills. How are our youth trained on cybersecurity and tertiary cybersecurity? And can we improve that in the future? Because there seems to be a skills gap of about 20 years, what we've been hearing. But we're also looking at IoT security. We're looking at in post-quantum encryption pretty soon. That is starting as we speak. We signed the contract on Friday to research on it. But we also hope to move to the next phase. And the next phase is not just looking at the theory of our recommendations, but to start producing I can't think of the word in English, but the workshops, the capacity building, so that actually our findings are being used by organizations around the world, so that the world becomes inherently more safer for all the users of the internet, and not just the privileged few who can afford it. So that's where we are. International at internet.nl. That is me, I can say, because I will be replying to you. If you have any questions, please contact us there. And if you're interested, you will get an invitation to the first meeting that we will be organizing pretty soon. And we'll let you know when the first meeting happens, but it will be somewhere in the spring of 2025. But let me end here. We're actually on time, and we had not expected that would happen, but we say that our speakers really kept in their time. I didn't have to correct anybody at some point. So that is all kudos here. Let me thank the speakers first, because we've heard a lot about their experience, and I think that it's tremendously important that we're going to improve ourselves and make ourselves better and keep making ourselves better. And it looks like with internet.nl, that is certainly possible. Doreen, thank you for monitoring online. And Koen, thank you for rapporteuring for us. And I want to thank the technicians for setting everything up, and our scribes somewhere in the world. I don't know where you are, but thank you very much for making sure that everything is recorded. So let me stop there. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to meet again pretty soon. Bye-bye.